that while debit card spends aren't really picking up at the outset, Aisha, given the data which Ankur just presented, credit card, on the other hand, is showing a very solid uptick. Of course, sustainability is one of the questions, but outside of that, the unsecured lending piece of
yes. I didn't want to say that.
of business seems to be doing better for banks, at least over the last week or so.
Yeah.
So that
was my first thought, actually. Yeah. But I was like, let me not jinx it. But yes, let's figure out exactly where all these spends are going. And we've got two gentlemen joining in to talk about exactly that. Lalit Bhise from Bizom, and we've got Abneesh Roy from Nuvama Institutional Equities to talk about exactly that. Lalit, hi, good to have you on the show. Let me first start off with you, because the last time we had you on the show, you had flagged a slowdown in white good purchases. And this was, of course, ahead of the GST rationalization. Post the implementation now, what's the pace of recovery since September 22nd? And has demand really made up for the earlier slowdown?
Hi, thanks for having me. From 21st, now we have just got data from the first week of post GST benefits, so to say, 22nd to 28th. And in this whole white goods and consumer durables as a ecosystem, we are already seeing the volume pick up, right? So as you can imagine, since the prices have dropped, the value may not go up that high, but the volume will obviously kind of caught up with it. So we estimate around 15 to 18% in terms of volume growth compared to last year, which might translate to approximately 5% in value growth this year. But these are obviously very early numbers as of right now.
Okay. Abneesh, let me come to you. Let me try and understand your take. We had HUL come out and suggest that you'll have some difficulty coming through at the end of Q2 as well as at the beginning of Q3, which is the month of October. But overall, on an FY26 basis, do you expect strong demand to come through? Do you expect volume growth to at least see some bit of an uptick given everything that's been pushed through in terms of policy and reform?
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me. Yeah, we do see that for FMCG, the recovery will be a bit later. And currently what's happening is two things have happened in September month. Post the GST announcement by the Modi government, next 2 weeks, the consumer was waiting for lower prices because he knew that prices will be lowered post September 22. And even the trade did not want to stock higher MRP because post September 22, they were having the issue that who will buy the higher priced product. Now what has happened, the transition is happening post September 22, and that's why HUL has said that even in October month, there could be some impact of the GST transition. Post that stability coming, we do see that in FMCG, the impulse categories like biscuits and snacks will see more benefit because of two reasons. Because in those categories, lower unit packs are very high, right? In snacks and biscuits, the 5 rupee, 10 rupee are quite big, almost 50-60% of the portfolio. So there the companies will add the grammage, so that leads to immediate addition to volume growth from say November. And second is consumer in these categories doesn't buy those in terms of grammage. He buys in terms of packs. Unlike that, if you see in toothpaste, etc., we don't see long-term much benefit of this because in toothpaste, yes, the lower unit packs will see higher grammage, but consumer is not going to really increase too much of consumption just because the toothpaste is say 10, 11% or 12% cheaper. So we see that select FMCG will see benefit. Initially, entire FMCG, wherever GST cuts have happened, because lower unit packs will see more grammage. One more thing the FMCG industry is currently waiting is lack of clarity in terms of the inverted duty structure. Because what is happening is the services, the leases, and a lot of the raw material for HPC and even for food companies, if you see the services, etc., the GST rate is 18%. While the final product, finished product is at 5%. So there'll be that challenge. So my sense is currently companies obviously have passed on the GST pricing to the end customer. But at some stage, they will go back to the drawing board and see how to incorporate this inverted duty adverse impact, because there is an adverse impact. So I think the recovery is there, but my sense is the impulse categories, paints, and maybe even the alcohol will see more benefits than something like a toothpaste or a toothpaste or say soap, for example. So there will be select cases where we'll see more benefit.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense. Lalit, what is your own analysis? Are you seeing an uptick in discretionary categories like durables, fashion, home appliances? Which specific categories are seeing the highest traction according to you right now?
So that's a great question, right? So maximum volume growth, as we are seeing, is in category like home care, and that typically is a festive behavior. People invest more in cleaning and home care houses. We are seeing a uptick in volume, like Avnish mentioned in confectionaries or chocolates as a category, for example. That's a great category. White goods, even fan, refrigerators. Those are the kind of categories where we are actually seeing a lot of uptick in general.
Sure. Avnish, you did highlight and give us a little bit color, but just going in depth, which segments do you think would be, or rather would see the maximum uptick because of not just the GST rationalization, but also the upcoming festive demand?
Yeah, my sense is paints, alcohol, bhujia, biscuits, etc. will see the higher benefit because obviously, as the participant also highlighted, some of these are linked to the festival. For example, the run up to festival, we do see a lot of painting happen. Alcohol again, we are seeing that there is a discretionary income which is increasing, so there will be some outlay increasing there. So these 4-5 buckets will see more impact. Even foods, other categories like noodles and pasta and chocolates, confectionery will also see benefit. So these are the segments where we'll see more benefit. Something like a HPC with the benefit will be on the lower side.
Lalit, do you believe that a large part of what we're seeing in terms of traction, both transaction-wise as well as possibly when we're going on ground and talking to some of the brick and mortar stores, is that just a bit of a rebound of all the pent-up demand that's been sitting? How much of this is sustainable, and what are festive trends really looking like? Give us that perspective.
Right. So you were talking about FMCG companies some time back, and let me just try and give you my heuristic perspective on the way the demand is coming up, right? The first week of GST 2.0 for large amount of FMCG companies was just about getting used to this new GST regime, right? So even, funnily enough, even the sacred price points like 5 rupees, I don't know whether you heard, but Parle reduced the 5 rupees to a little bit lesser, some 4 point something, 4.6 or something as a price point, which was a strange thing. To some of the FMCG companies even started to go away from that magic price points in the short term. The reason for that being that getting the supply chains, I mean, for increasing the grammage, you need to get the supply chains in place, and that's a time-taking process. So in 3 weeks, not all FMCG companies could get the supply chains in places. So some of them just even moved away from the magic price points with the same grammage. But some of them actually kept the magic price points while increased the damage. So there is a multiple movements happening as of right now. So from what I see is the first week itself, it's just getting used to this new GST regime. And from sustainability point of view, this is obviously the original. So in some categories like white goods, it was a pent-up demand, right? So there are 2-3 weeks prior to GST, we actually saw a little bit of a dip in consumption, which is getting caught up right now. Some categories like confectionery and home care are typically seeing the festive uptake in general. The usual consumption categories will not really, we did not even change prior to the GST, and I would be very surprised if they would change even post GST. At least in first weeks, it seems that it's in line with the usual festive. So the typical FMCG consumption is not going to change dramatically. I mean, some level of grammage and other stuff will happen, but value growth will be very hard to see there.
Avnish, barring, the near-term impact of the GST rationalization and companies passing on those benefits, where do you think the big structural shift will happen? Would it be in sort of upgrading? Would it be a move towards premiumization? Is it going to be tier 2 to 3 cities moving up the value chain? or is it going to be largely the unorganized to organized shift which will, sort of get a push?
Yeah, good question. 4-5 key points here. One is I do expect popular price point to 510 to fully come back. The current 4.7 rupee pricing, etc., are just a transition, and it makes no sense. There is no 4.7 rupee coinage, right? So we do see that the biggest benefit of GST rate cuts for FMCG is that 2 rupee, 5 rupee, 10 rupee, the life cycle for these price point has been elongated by 5 to 7 years, because there was a big question mark at 5 rupee, 10 rupee. How do you offer enough value to customer? Because of these cuts, I think next 5 years, the life cycle has increased, and we will see that the compliance increases, right? In many FMCG categories, there is a local unorganized players who are not part of the GST structure, but at 5%, they will not find enough reason to escape the GST system. And that's why we see a level playing field in many categories like bhujia, chocolates, and even in terms of biscuits, etc. So that's a very systemic shift. Third, of course, from a premiumization, clearly we will see that again, because disposable income, as we discussed in the previous participant, he was saying that almost 1.5 lakh crore initially the income tax rebates, and now this 50,000 crore kind of a GST benefit. Obviously, everything will gradually come to FMCG. So we do see that premiumization will get a benefit. We see HUL, for example, targeting almost 100 bps increase in premiumization almost every year. The fourth point will be essentially we will also see that some of these will lead to operating leverage benefit in terms of the margins eventually, once the inverted duty structure is also panned out. So so we see that the smaller towns and rural will continue to grow faster. Urban, which has been the big problem last 3-4 quarters, our sense is from November that will see recovery because of the GST rate cuts also.
All right. Gentlemen, thank you so much. We'll let you go on that note. And of course, we'll keep a close eye on